format. Okay, write in what? Binary. Okay. But if I write only W, means it will open in what? Text. But I want to open in which format? Binary format. So where I said WB, so write, and this is called as which one? Binary, right? Then after that, I'm trying to write the data by saying pickle dot. Pickle dot, what is the name of the function here? Dump. So where you want to dump? A is object. I want to write inside F. And again I said pickle dot. Pickle dot. Again I said dump. And B is object. And I want to dump inside F. Then again I'm saying pickle dot. Pickle dot and dump. Now C is object. And I'm trying to write inside file. So what will happen here? It will convert integer into what? Bytes. Okay. It will try to write. It will try to convert float again into what here? Bytes. Okay. It will try to write complete object graph. It will try to convert complex into which one again? Bytes. So what is right? Okay. Data is right. What it will write is, it will write the data along with the type. What will happen is in pickling, what will happen is it will convert. I mean, it will write the data along with the structure. Structure means the type, all the properties will be written inside what? File. So that at the time of reading, it will also read along with this bytes and convert into which type? Integer type. So whenever it is writing it, it is not only write the data, it will also write which one? Type. So that when you do deserialization, it will read those bytes and convert back into which type? Integer type. So the complete object structure is right. So then accept the block. In accept the block, you are trying to handle the error. So that is OS error, and here you are writing a message. So unable to create a file. And then in finally block, you are trying to close a resource by saying f dot close. So that is nothing but deallocating resource. So one is for allocating resource, the other one is for deallocating the resource. One is for allocating the resource, the other one is for what? Deallocating resource. Okay, right? Yeah, just try to understand this. So resource allocation is there. And one more is, yes. Now this is how you are trying to write. So this data here. So the file is created. What is the name of the file created? Data file dot SCR. But where this file is created in? This file is created in current working directory. So this is a data file. But what is the extension? SCR. But what will happen if I try to open this file? So I try to open this file in Notepad. But can you see here? Can you see any data here? No. Because it is right in the form of which one? Bytes. I said it will not only write the data, it will write even along with which one? Type. It is not only write the data, it will try to write which one? It will try to write which one? Type also. Type also written inside what? File. So that at the time of deserializing, it will read the data by converting into same type. Okay, it will read the data by converting into what here? Same type. So this is an example of serialization. Serialization or same thing you can call it as pickling. It is called as serialization or the same thing is called as what here? Pickling. Okay. So here the output is saved inside file. So it will write. So pickled represent. It write pickled representation of. It will write pickled representation of object. It will write pickled representation of object inside file, or it will write pickled representation of object inside file. So while writing object inside file, it will convert or it will write data with type information, data with what here? Type information, or it will write object properties. It will write object properties with values inside what here? File. So it will try to write the complete object graph. Okay. It will not only write the data by converting into bytes, it will write even the type information also. So it will write, suppose when you say dump A, it will convert this complete object into bytes along with the data as well as what type. So that this type is useful at the time of reading it. Okay. So it will write the object state. It will write, I can say, or it will write object. It will write object state. State is nothing but data with data type. It will write data along with the data type. But this data type is useful at the time of reading the data. This data type is useful at the time of what? Reading the data. This data type is useful at the time of reading the data, right? So while writing object inside file, it will write data with the type information. It will write object properties. It will write object properties with values inside file, or it will write object state. It will write object state with the data type. But this is done by converting into what here? Bytes. You can see the complete object graph, or you can say it will write the complete object graph. It will write complete object graph by converting into which one here? Bytes. It will write complete object graph by converting into bytes. It will write the complete object graph. It will write complete object graph by converting into bytes. Even that is done using this, it will write complete object graph by converting into bytes. So that is how we are trying to do it. Then how can I read it? Reading is nothing but deserializing. So this is an example of reading it. So import pickle. I want to read the same data from the file. So this time I have to open the file in. I have to open the file in read mode. So data file dot. So what is the name of the file? SCR. So RB. B stands for what here? Binary. And R means what here? Read. R means read and B stands for binary. Right? So open the file. Data file dot SCR. Data file dot SCR. And you are trying to open the file in read mode. R means read. B stands for what here? Binary. R means read and B stands for binary. Okay. So how can I read it? So for reading, you can use, for example, first object I'm reading it, but I have to use a pickle dot. So pickle dot load. So load from file, first object, and this is a second object, load from file. C equal to, I'm trying to say pickle dot. So pickle dot load. So pickle dot load from which one here? File. So load will convert bytes. So first object, it will convert into which one? Integer. And second object is bytes, is converted to which one? Float. And third object convert bytes into which one? Complex. Now this process, you call it as deserializing, or same thing is called as unpickling, right? So you are trying to print A value, B value, and one more value is what? C value. So there is an accept block. Yes. So I'm trying to handle the error. So OS error. Okay. So unable to read the file. So then inside finally block. So you are trying to close a file by saying f dot close. So that is used for closing the file, right? So try to open the file and load the data from the file. So first one is integer and second one is float and third one is what here? Complex. So this is inverse process. Now you can see 120 and 1.5 and 1 plus 2j, right? So this process you call it as which one? Unpickling. This process you call it as unpickling. So example of unpickling, or deserialization. So this is converting back byte stream into what here? Object stream. Converting bytes into what here? Objects. So that process, you call it as unpickling or deserializing. So it's nothing but getting the existing state of the object. Getting the existing state of the object. So that process, you call it as unpickling. That process, you call it as which one? Deserialization. It's called as unpickling, or the same thing is called as what? Deserialization. Unpickling or the same thing is called a deserialization, right? Yes. But this is writing predefined types. Like we try to write predefined data types like integer, float, complex. Even you can write list, set, dictionaries. You want to write a dictionary inside a file and you want to read the dictionary from the file, right? So when you're writing, you can convert that dictionary into what? Bytes. You can convert that dictionary into what? Bytes, and you can read that bytes and convert back into what? Dictionary. You can write dictionary into the bytes and bytes can be converted back into what? Dictionary. Now that can be done by using which methods here? Dump method, right? Yes. You can also write user defined type. User defined type means building your own class. So user defined type means I want to write my own, I want to build my own class and I want to create object and I want to write it. Okay, just try to understand how can I build a class in Python is by using the keyword called class. So just try to understand, you learn this in object oriented. So what is the name of my class is? The name of the class or data type is employee. What is the name of the class here? Employee. So employee is a class name. Employee is a class name, or it is called as which name? Data type name. It is a class name, or it is called as which name here? Data type name. Employee is what name here? Class name, or it is called as what name? Data type name, right? So this employee, I try to define some properties. I try to define some properties of which one? Employee. So generally how you define properties is by writing one special function, inside one class, and that is called as, actually you learn this, all this you learn in object oriented, but just try to understand what is the name of the data type? Employee. You learn this in object oriented, but just try to understand how to build your own class. What is the name of the class? Employee, or what is the name of the data type? Employee. So you are initializing this employee. You are initializing this employee with some properties. So properties are created by using one variable called self. Okay, you'll say self dot employee number is some 101, and self dot employee name is some nourish, right? And self dot. So just try to understand. But employee is having how many properties here? Three properties. Employee is having how many properties here? Three properties are there. So one is employee number, second one is employee name, and third one is what? Salary. So first one is employee number, second one is employee name, and third one is what here? Salary. Okay. So the first one is employee number, and second one is employee name. First one is employee number, second one is employee name, and third one is what here? Salary. Right? Three properties are there. Employee is having three properties here. Okay. Then what I'm doing is I'm creating object of employee. So employee one equal to employee. So this is how you create object. So this is creating object of which class? Employee class. So whenever you create the object, so what will happen is there is a memory allocated for these properties. Now your object is having how many properties here? Three properties. The first one is employee number with the value 101, employee name with the value nourish, and salary with the value what? 5,000. But whenever you create object, your object is created where? In the RAM. Okay, RAM is nothing but temporary or permanent? Temporary. But I want to save this object. I want to save this object. Then how can I save this object? I have to convert this object. Into what? Bytes. I have to convert these objects into bytes, and then I should write inside one file. So converting object into a bytes is called as which one? Pickling. Converting object into the bytes is called as which one? Pickling. So after converting the object into a bytes, you are writing this bytes inside which one? File. So that process you call it as which one here? Pickling. So pickling is a process of converting, okay, object into a sequence of bytes. So what will I do? I'll try to import which module? Pickle module. And in this, I'm trying to say pickle dot. So what is this method here? Dump. And which object you are dumping here? EMP. Insert some file. So I try to create one file here. So I'm trying to handle the errors here. So f equal to open. Some name of the file is emp dot scr and w and b. So I try to open this file in which mode? Write and B. B is nothing but, yes, binary. And then pickle.dump. And this is except block. So I try to handle the error saying OS error. I try to handle the error which is called as OS error. I'm saying unable to open. Unable to open what? File. Unable to open file. And inside finally block. I try to close which one? File. Instead finally block, I try to close the file. So this is a function main. So once you run this, so the file is created. So there is a file created in current directory. So what is the name of the file is emp. I can see. So it is right. It is right. What is the type of object is written? Employee, along with employee number, employee name, and what is that? Salary. But this is converting. So it will write the complete object graph. It will write the complete object graph. Complete object graph. So this complete object graph is right. Means it will write the type information. It will write which information, fields information, and it will also write which one data. It will write the type information. It will write the fields information, and it is also write which one data. It will write the type information and fields information, and it will also write which one here data. Everything is written inside what here file. So what you can do is you can write this in a separate module. So I'll write this in one module. I'm dividing this. So this is one module here. So here I try to write the logic for pickling here. So this module is having only data type. This module is having only data type, and this module is imported here. So why I have written in separate module is this data type is used in more than one module. So file test 13 import. What is the name of the data type? Employee. So from this module I imported which data type? Employee data type, and I used here. Okay, so it is done. Okay, so this is one module. So this module is having employee data type. So why I divided just here? This is one module. So create first one module. So what is this module here? Some file tester. File test what? 13.py. So in this module, I develop one data type, or I develop one class, and this class is used here for representing whose data? Employees data. Okay, so this is file tester some 14.py. This is for which one? Pickling or serializing serialization of a object. This is serialization of which one? Object. So this is for pickling or serialization of the object. Serialization of the object is done using this approach. So file test 14.py for pickling or serialization of which one? Object. So I try to write another program which is called as file. So which is called as file 15, where I'm saying import pickle module and import file from file test 13. Import which data type here? Employee data type. So at the time of pickling, we use which data type? Employee data type. So at the time of unpickling also you require same data type. Because of that, this data type I saved in one separate module. Because of that, I saved this employee data type in separate module. And what is the name of this module? File test 13. Because of that, I put this employee module in separate, employee class in separate module. And if you want to read it, you can read it. So just open the file. So open the file in which mode? Read mode. So what is the name of the file? emp.scr. So open the file in read and binary format and then say, so what you have to say is pickle dot load. So load from the file. And after that, I'm printing what is the data available. E dot, what is the name of the property employee number? What is the name of the property employee name? What is the name of the property salary? So there is an except block. And here I try to handle the error by saying OS error. And here I'm trying to display the message unable to create or open the file, unable to open the file. And in finally block, I just close the file. In finally block, I close the file, right? In finally block, I close the file. So print. Okay, now you can see 101 narration 5000. So I just open this file emp.scr in which mode? Read mode, and read in which format? Binary format. And I try to load from file. So when I'm loading from the file, this load method, it look for data type. Which data type it look for? Employee data type. But are we imported employee data type or not? Yes. Now using this employee data type, it will create which object? Employee object, and load all the data. It will create employee object and load all the data. After loading all the data, you are trying to display it by saying E dot, you are reading the value of employee number, E dot, you are reading the value of employee name, and E dot, you are reading the value of what? Salary. E dot, you are reading the value of employee number, E dot, you are reading the value of employee name, E dot, you are reading the value of what? Salary, right? So once you run this, now this is inverse process that is called as unpickling. So it is not only work with the predefined data types, it is also work with what here user defined data types for unpickling, or deserialization of which one? Object. So this is how you are trying to work with the different types of files. So this can be text file or it can be binary file. Okay, so there are two types of files. One is a text file and one more is called which file here? Binary file. Text file or one more is called which file? Binary file. This is how you are trying to read and write it. So you not only save the data inside a file. Yeah, this is how you work with the files. So there are two types of files supported by Python. One is called as a text file. One is a text file and one more is which file? Binary file, right? So where in text file, you are writing the data in the form of text. But in a binary file, you are writing the data in the form of bytes. In text file, you are writing the data in the form of string. But in binary file, you are writing the data in the form of bytes. So let us see. Okay, let us see like how can you write data. Let us see how can you write the data into what? Database. Okay, now this is another chapter here which is called as Python Python database. This is another chapter here, Python database communication. Python database communication. So how your Python communicate with the database which is called as PDBs. Like in Java, you call it as JDBC, which is called as Java Database Communication, JDBC, which is called as Java Database Communication. Now in this case, it is called as PDBC, which is called as Python Database Communication. So Python Database Communication, right? Python Database Communication. is how Python program communicate with the database. How Python program communicate with the database. So we can save the data. See, I say no, we can save the data. So every application required to save or store data permanently. Okay, every application required to store or save data permanently, and we can store or save data, we can store or save data permanently, okay, permanently in two systems. One is in file system and one more is in what? Database system. Or one is in files. You can save the data in the files, or you can save the data into what? Database. So every application required to save or store data permanently, and we can store or save data permanently into two systems. One is inside the files and second one is inside what? Database. But there are some limitations of files. Okay, till now we have used files, right? So there are some limitations. Okay, there are some limitations of using files. So what are the limitations of using the files? Okay, so there are some limitations. So file cannot hold a large amount of, okay, file cannot hold large amount of what? Data. A file cannot hold, when I'm talking about file, right? A file cannot hold a large amount of data. We cannot store large amount of data inside what? File. We cannot store large amount of data inside a file. And not only that, the data stored inside file is not secured. Not secured. The data stored inside file is not secured. Because where file is stored in hard disk, and is it your operating system will provide any security? No, your operating system will not provide any security. So the whatever data you store inside a file, it is not secured because the operating system will not provide any security for what? Files. Okay. Yes, the data stored inside file is not secured because because files are managed by which one here? Operating system. And operating system doesn't provide any what? Security. Operating system cannot provide security because where is the files are stored in hard disk, or files are managed by operating system, and operating system will not provide any security for what? Files. Okay. And next is file cannot hold large amount of data. The data stored inside file is not secured because files are managed by whom? Operating system. And operating system doesn't provide any security, right? And not only that, okay, programmer has to write a logic, write a logic or instructions, or write a logic to perform to perform operations like, okay, adding data, adding data, adding data, adding or reading, okay, updating, and which operations? Delete operations. Programmer has to write logic to perform operations like adding, reading, updating, and deleting operations, right? And files are Okay, files are application dependent, okay, or program dependent. Okay, so files are applications dependent or program dependent. Dependent. So it is program dependent. Using one program, I'll write the data. I need to use the same program for what? Writing the data. Okay. So files are application dependent or what? Program dependent. So these are some limitations of using which one? Files. What I mean to say is programmer has to write the logic. Means files doesn't provide. I can say files will not provide. Files not provide. File system doesn't provide. File system doesn't provide any which language here? Query language. So file system will not provide any query language. File system doesn't provide any query language for doing certain operations like inserting, updating, or anything. So all those operations you have to do it. All those operations you have to do it, right? So Python, every application required to save or store data permanently, and we can store or save data permanently in what? Two systems. One is called as a file system and one more is what? Database system. But there are some limitations of which system? File system. So these are the limitations. These are the limitations of which system? File system. Because of that, you are moving to which one? Database. So what is the advantage of using database? So what is the advantage of using database application or database? So database, we are using database or database applications for storing data permanently. So to avoid, to avoid, to avoid above limitations, to avoid these limitations, we are using databases or database applications. Databases are database applications for storing what is that? Data. To avoid these limitations, we are using databases or database applications for storing which one? Data. So you have a different database applications, database softwares, or database softwares or database softwares or database applications. If you see database softwares or database applications, you find different database softwares or database applications. You find different database softwares or database applications like you have a database called Oracle. So there is a database called which one? MySQL. There is a database called PostgreSQL. There is a database called SQLite. There is a database called SQL Server. So all these are DB2. All these are which applications? Database applications. Or all these are database softwares. All these are database applications. Or all these are called which one here? Database softwares. All these are database applications. Or all these are called database softwares. Oracle is there. It is database software. MySQL is a database application or software. So there are huge number of databases out there, like MongoDB is also database software. So all these are database softwares, or you call it as database applications like Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, SQL Server, and one more is DB2, right? So what is the advantage of using databases? Okay, one is what is the advantage of using databases? A database can hold. There's a database can hold what? Large amount of what? Data. Database can hold a large amount of data. Huge amount of data you can store inside what? Database. like some of data, right? So what is the name of the database software? Oracle. What is the name of the database software? MySQL. What is the name of the database software? SQL Server. All these are database softwares or database applications where we can store what data, right? So database can hold a large amount of data, and data stored inside database data stored inside database is what secure, because the security, because this security is provided by the security is provided by the security is provided by which one? Database management, database application. It is provided by database application. And database provides a query language. Okay, database provide which one? Query language. What is that query language? Query language called which one? SQL. SQL performing performing operations for performing operations performing operations like inserting, so updating, okay, updating, so deleting, and what is that? Reading, reading or retrieving operations. Okay, so all this, it means you don't require to write any logic. Okay, you don't require to write any operation for inserting. You just use one language called which one? SQL. And using that SQL you do operations like inserting, updating, deleting, and what? Reading. So that is the advantage of using which one here? Databases. So database softwares are database applications. So there is Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, SQL Server, and one more is a DB2. All these are database softwares or database applications. All these are database softwares or database applications, right? And this is the advantage of using which one? Database. Okay. The next is, so these are the limitations. Okay. Then before talking about this, now you need to install one database. You need to install one database or not, right? So this is Python is a front end. So generally Python, in this case, Python is called as a front end. So in this case, Python, so this is your Python program, and this Python program is called as which one? Front end. This Python program is called as which one here? Front end. And your database is what here? Backend. Yes. So this is a database. So this is which database here? Oracle database. So this is Oracle database software. MySQL database. This is MySQL database, and this is one database. Okay, right now this is one more database. So this is called as SQL Server. SQL Server database like this. You have a multiple database softwares. All these are database softwares, right? Then using Python, you can communicate with various databases, right? So I can use a Python to write inside which database? Oracle. Using Python, I can communicate with MySQL, or using Python, I can communicate with what? SQL Server. So where I can say Python is called as the front end, and these databases can be called as which one here? backend. So this is called as a backend here, where I'm using database as a database as what here, backend, right? So your language is front end and your database is here taken as which one, backend. So what you have to do is, in your system you have to install one database. You have to install one database, right? In your system you have to install one database. You have to install one database. In your system you have to install one database. Okay, so first I'll tell you, like how to work with the this database here, MySQL. Okay, so how to work with the MySQL? Yes, first I'll tell you how to work with the MySQL. So what is MySQL? Is a database software. What is Oracle? Is a database software or database application. What is MySQL? Is a database software or database application. What is Oracle? Database software or database application. And what is SQL Server? Is a database software or database application. Okay. So first I'll tell you how to work with which database, MySQL database. So how to work with which database, MySQL database application, MySQL database application or MySQL database software, MySQL database application or MySQL database software, right? So how to work with MySQL database application or how to work with MySQL database software, right? So first we'll see how to install MySQL, how to install MySQL here. So in my system, already MySQL is there. I try to remove it. In my system, already MySQL is there. I just try to remove it.